Hey, I'm John Sifferman from physicalliving.com, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing a few different types of pro-grade kettlebells from a couple different companies to compare and contrast some of the pros and cons and ultimately help you decide which one you might be most interested in and what you should be looking for when considering pro-grade kettlebells. I think that the two companies that I have represented here are the top two best companies that you can order kettlebells from in the USA and maybe in other parts of the world depending on what you're looking for. So in case you're not familiar with what a pro-grade kettlebell is, it's just a standardized form of kettlebell equipment. Just like how a basketball is always the same size and shape and weight regardless of what league you're playing in, kettlebells that are pro-grade, typically made of steel as far as I know. I've never seen any that aren't made of steel. Irrespective of what the weight is, the size, shape, and dimensions are always the same, or almost exactly the same. There are some subtle differences between these different companies that we'll talk about in a minute. But generally speaking, a 16 kilogram kettlebell will be the same exact size, shape, and dimensions as a 32 kilogram kettlebell. Even though they're different companies, different models, even though this one's twice as heavy, they're basically the same size, shape, and dimensions. And the reason that's valuable, and the reason why I recommend people invest in pro-grade kettlebells as opposed to standard kettlebells, which tend to be made out of iron and will be a different set of dimensions for every different weight, is because when you're changing weight, when you're getting stronger, which is what we want from kettlebell training, you don't have to adjust your technique to compensate for a larger kettlebell or just a different sized kettlebell. So standardized equipment is a good thing, and I always recommend if you can get pro-grade kettlebells, please do. And there's no reason you need to pay more money for professional grade competition kettlebells than you do for iron kettlebells, because these you can get these at very reasonable prices and sometimes even cheaper than iron kettlebells. So what I've got here is a 16 kilogram kettlebell from Perform Better at performbetter.com. This is one of their, I believe it's called First Place competition kettlebells. And again, that's 16 kilograms. This is a 28 kilogram kettlebell from the World Kettlebell Club. That's Valery Fedorenko's organization. If you've never heard of Valery Fedorenko, you might want to look him up. He's kind of big in the kettlebell industry. He would know what he's doing when he's inventing some of these, designing these. So this is from the WKC. This is one of their men's competition kettlebells. Again, 28 kilograms, competition model. This is also from the WKC, Valery Fedorenko, and this is one of his more recent designs. It's one of their performance models, and again, this is a 32 kilogram. So these are different models from the same organization, and this is from Perform Better. Between these two, I think that pretty much anybody who's interested in pro-grade kettlebells, you should be looking at these two companies, because in all my research, they have the best options at the lowest prices. And generally speaking, if you're shopping around on value, you want to be looking at Perform Better. They have the cheapest pro-grade kettlebell prices I've ever seen. I've looked over and over for years, and nobody can really beat them price-wise, especially when you consider that their shipping rates are usually much lower than all the other companies. I mean, you might pay $40, $50, $60 to ship one of these kettlebells with most companies who sell them. At Perform Better, I think I paid $15 to have this thing shipped, and I think that's a flat rate for any kettlebells. So correct me if I'm wrong. Dates and prices obviously change as time goes on. But generally speaking, if you're a bargain hunter and you want pro-grade kettlebells, Perform Better is the way to go. And generally speaking, if you're looking for a high-quality kettlebell and you're willing to pay a little bit more, not a ton more, but you're willing to pay a little bit more, go right to the top. Go right to the World Kettlebell Club. Valery Fedorenko knows what he's doing when he's designing these, and these are definitely a higher quality product. But that said, there are some reasons why you want to consider both companies. So we're going to talk about some of the differences. I've been using this one for a couple of years now. I bought this myself a couple of years ago. I've used kettlebells for 8-9 years now, and I've probably used at least a half dozen brands of pro-grade competition kettlebells over the years. I've used them from all sorts of different companies, and this is the one I decided to buy because I'm not an elite level kettlebell athlete. I don't need the highest quality Cadillac kettlebells, because I use kettlebells for fitness purposes, for strength and conditioning. I don't participate in Giro Voice Sport, kettlebell sport. If I did, I probably would have invested in some higher quality kettlebells, because there are some subtle differences in these that make them better. But and so keep that in mind. Keep my level of experience in mind, because if I was, one of those top ranking kettlebell athletes who's going for world records and just incredible performances, I might be able to notice bigger differences between these than I can now. But for my intents and purposes, I'm reviewing these to be used as a fitness or strength and conditioning kettlebell, or something somebody might use recreationally if they just like having a little bit of fun when they work out. So that said, generally speaking, I don't notice any discernible or significant difference in my performance or use or in the design of these two kettlebells. Both of them are the competition models, this one from Perform Better, this one from the World Kettlebell Club. There are some subtle differences in how they are shaped. The handle is slightly different, the bell is slightly different. It's probably really hard to tell with the camera and the lighting, and I'm not going to show them up close necessarily, I'm just going to talk about them. But I don't notice any discernible difference that I can tell from a performance standpoint. So if it was up to me, whatever, just buy, if I'm looking for value and I'm not going to compete in kettlebell sport, or I don't need the highest quality equipment, or I'm trying to save some money, I'd go with this one for that purpose. Now that said, these are higher quality kettlebells, and if you've got the money, then I always recommend investing in higher quality. And you're not going to pay that much more for one of these than you are that. I mean, depending on which one goes on sale, because both companies have sales regularly, you might be able to get some of these higher quality ones at a lower rate. But that said, this performance model on the left, I do notice a distinguishable difference in my performance using it when compared to this competition model here. And I notice an even bigger difference when compared to the Perform Better bell. And there's two things I want to highlight about it. And the first is the obvious one. When you look at the performance model, what makes it different, or at least what I notice makes it different, is that there's a flattened out portion on all four sides of the kettlebell, where the kettlebell rests on the back of your wrist in rack position. So it's a little bit more flattened out, smoothed out, so that it's not protruding into your wrist and putting more pressure and strain on your wrist. And it just makes it more comfortable to hold in rack position, and obviously just maneuvering in other ways as well. So I like that. It's going to result in less strain on your wrist. It's going to result in not fatiguing prematurely. It's a good feature. And I don't know if these are necessarily legit in Jeravoy sport or not, because I'm not in that community. But if they are, and even if there aren't and you want to train for that, this is the way to go, because it's going to be more comfortable to use. You're going to be able to get more reps because of that reason in and of itself. Now that's the main thing I notice. The other thing that I notice, I can't really delineate necessarily, but there's something about this grip that I notice. It feels right, and I can't put my finger on it, but when I get that kettlebell in there, it feels good. It lines right up, and my technique, if I'm using poor technique, it's definitely because of me. It's not because of that, because the alignment just happens, and I noticed that even between these two kettlebells, and especially between these two. So this is a really, really sweet grip, and that reason in and of itself is why I kind of consider this like the Cadillac of kettlebells. That's like as good as you can do right there. And it costs a little bit more than this one, and which costs a little bit more than that one. So you're going to spend, I don't know, $20, $30 more for a single kettlebell of the performance models. But honestly, I think it's worth it. If you're going to be using these things, and if you can afford it, any one of these, if you take care of it, will last you the rest of your life. They're very low maintenance, being a hunk of steel, but once in a while you can use some steel wool on them, or give them a new coat of paint. But these are things you don't have to baby them. They're very durable. I have seen some of these cheaper manufacturers. I have seen them break when guys start juggling them and dropping them on the ground and whatever. But generally speaking, any one of these is going to last you the rest of your life if you take care of it. And so there's different reasons why you might want to buy one or the other. So to recap, I don't notice hardly any difference between these two. Naturally, if you're shopping around based on price, you're probably going to find the best price at performbetter.com, especially when you consider shipping. But both of these companies have sales regularly, and so you might find a better price with the WKC. And I say if that's the case, definitely go with the WKC bell, even if you just get the competition model, because these are definitely a higher quality, superior product. And if you can't afford the best, then buy the best. Buy the performance bells, and certainly invest in these if you're a kettlebell athlete or an aspiring kettlebell athlete, because they are going to affect your numbers. You will be able to improve your performance from using them. Maybe that's why they gave them that name. So these two kettlebells are actually given to me to review probably 4 or 5 months ago, so I've been using them since then. So I really appreciate the WKC sending these out to me. I hope I gave them a good review and a good recommendation. You know, I think they're great kettlebells, and I think if you're looking for quality kettlebells, go right to the top. Go right to the guys who know this stuff better than anybody else. Go right to the World Kettlebell Club. And so, if you have any questions about kettlebells or kettlebell training or anything in general, just hit me up. I'd love to hear from you. I love doing videos like these. I wish I could do more of them. So I'm John Sifferman from physicalliving.com. Take care.